So, I want to talk to you about something which affects all of us as Americans and is really important, which is our taxes. I've been looking at Congress's website and going through what is being proposed in the way of tax reform. And I'd like to go over some of the highlights. I think at a high level, we are all aware that what Congress is looking to do is decrease the tax burden on corporations and the wealthy and increase taxes on the rest of us. But I think it's important to understand the details. And I will include a link in the comments directly to these documents so that you can go through this stuff for yourself. But at a high level, first let me talk about the benefits for corporations and the wealthy. So first of all, Congress would like to eliminate the estate tax or the death tax, which, by the way, only kicks in when you have assets greater than 12.9 million per person. So this is going to benefit so many of us, right? Definitely not me. Also, with respect to corporations, they actually have two proposals, and I'm just kind of assuming that one is the preferred and the other is the fallback, but they either want to take the corporate tax rate from 21 to 15%, or failing that, they want to take it from 21% to 20%. And maybe you think that doesn't sound so bad, but it wasn't so long ago that tax rate was at 35%. And go back even further, it's been a lot higher in the past at points in time when we as a country were doing a lot better and when Americans were doing a lot better. Now let me talk about the stuff that affects everyday Americans like you and I. So first of all, they want to eliminate the head of household filing status. And the target here, the people that this is going to have the greatest impact on, are single parents. So this one is going to hit me. What this means is that if you are a single parent, you will be paying a lot more in taxes, because the goal is, number one, to punish you for being a single parent, and number two, to encourage you to stay in your marriage, even if that marriage is terrible or even abusive. The incoming vice president has already said that if you are in an abusive marriage, it is best for the children that you stay in that marriage. I don't know what kind of Kool-Aid he's been drinking, but okay. They also want to eliminate the deduction for child and dependent care, because child and dependent care is so inexpensive in the United States. It's really affordable, so we don't need that deduction anymore, right? Right? Yeah. They also want to eliminate the home mortgage interest deduction. Now, if you were lucky enough to buy a home at like 3% interest rate, maybe that's not such a big deal to you, but interest rates are going up and homes are pretty unaffordable. This is just going to make it that much harder for anyone to purchase a home in the future. Not something that billionaires have to worry about, but for the rest of us, much harder. Now, they also clearly want to make it much harder for any of us to get an education, because they prefer us to be dumb and gullible. So they would like to eliminate the deduction of interest on student loans. How many of you have student loans? I think it's a lot of us. They'd like to eliminate the exclusion of scholarships and fellowships from taxable income. They'd like to eliminate the American Opportunity Credit, which is a $2,500 deduction for education in the first 4 years. They want to eliminate the Lifetime Learning Credit, which is a tax credit of 20% of tuition and related expenses not to exceed $10K. They want to eliminate deductions for charitable contributions to health organizations. And if you think about this one, I'm sure you can figure it out. They don't want you to be able to make a deduction if you make a charitable contribution to an organization like Planned Parenthood, or maybe you make a donation to an organization that's funding HIV prevention. They don't like that. They also want to eliminate the nonprofit status for hospitals. So no more nonprofit hospitals. They're going to get taxed just like regular hospitals. Net effect of this, healthcare costs are going to go up. I would expect probably some of those hospitals are going to end up having to close down, which is going to create healthcare deserts, especially in areas where there are greater levels of poverty. So once again, I feel like there is a particular segment of the population that is being targeted here. They would also like to end the employee retention tax credit, which is a program which essentially encourages employers to retain employees during an economic downturn. So this tax credit helped many of us keep our jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic. So if they eliminate this and there's another pandemic, for example, with the bird flu, it's much more likely that we are going to lose our jobs, which Congress doesn't really care about. It's not their problem. They're worried about the corporations and the wealthy. And this last one, they also want to change the tax regulations on endowment. So this would essentially apply to private universities, particularly the Ivy Leagues. This would change the tax rate on them from 1.4% to 14%. I think the goal here is ultimately to put them out of business because it is one of the stated priorities of the Heritage Foundation to kill the Ivy Leagues. But I think in general, given some of the other proposals around education, the goal is wider, essentially to kill educational opportunities in general for anyone, but especially for anyone who is not part of the 1%, because it serves to the benefit of the 1% if only the children of the 1% can afford to go to college or university. The rest of us need to remain uneducated so that we don't realize what they're doing to us. So I'm going to make the argument here that even if you're a Republican watching this, that these proposals are probably not things that you're happy with. I would say that we need to be making phone calls to our senators and representatives to express our unhappiness with this. In all fairness, the proposal to exclude taxes on tips and overtime is part of the list. However, I would argue that it's more than offset by all of the other terrible stuff. The net, if you add everything up, it's going to be a big positive for the wealthy and for corporations and a big negative for the rest of us. It's hard to look at what's being proposed and conclude that Congress cares about the American people at all. They care about corporations and wealthy donors, and this is all about making them happy. And they are hoping that we are not paying attention to the details and that they can just push all this through and we won't realize or recognize until it's too late and we're actually filling out our taxes for 2025 and are suddenly asking ourselves, why am I having to pay like, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 more than I ever have before? But at that point, it'll be locked into law. So take a look at the document that I'm going to link in the comments and call and make some noise with your representatives. This I don't see as a partisan issue. I don't think you have to identify yourself as Democrat, Republican, Independent, making the phone call. Actually, our politicians, our representatives should be aware that both sides are angry and that we want a tax code that works to support the average American and not one that works to further enrich people who are already unbelievably rich.